So I think
Yes.
this is your stage, Sashank. You can start. Thank
Yep.
you.
Uh, Thanks, guys. Thanks for such a generous introduction. Uh,
Right.
I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy that you have reached out to me because all of us have walked into the field of data science from different paths in our life. Me,
Right.
myself,
Right.
I'm a biological sciences undergraduate, and I'm doing data science as of now. So uh, I've learned through communities, and like-minded people. Try to come together, and you can learn better, and you can progress in a better way. So I think that's the idea of the whole community, I guess. Uh,
Right. Right.
a short intro about me. So I did my post graduation in data science, especially in business applications of data science. Post that, I have had a short stint with American Express. I was with HDFC Bank almost for around 2.5 years, and recently I've joined Ugro Capital, uh, which is an NBFC, and it's into MSME sector lending business. So uh, that's about me. So I come from a data science background, and I've my expertise lie in the financial uh, domain of things. So thought, as this is a relaunch event, I thought probably I would start off with giving a brief intro into data science. What is it about? What are the different skill sets you might need to do data science, and what are the different applications where data science is being widely used currently, and probably like if you're starting off your career in data science, what are the different career paths you might come across, and you might go through in becoming a data scientist, right? So yeah, let's start off. So if you look at these three spheres of here which coincide into data science, right? uh, so I would say these would be broadly basic pillars of data science, where mathematics core piece of data science. So let's think what data science is, right? It's basically a set of experiments you are doing on data to try and find certain insights, right? So you have a certain hypothesis, and you want to do that experiment, and support that hypothesis with your with your findings and so on, right? So that's where statistical research come into play. Like you have found some insights on the data which you had, and you have done certain experiments, and you want to say with a certain confidence that this prediction or an insight which I've seen is mathematically significant, right? So that's where your statistics come into play, and all those predictions have been done on your data using it might be a simple linear formula to a complex non-linear equation. So that's where machine learning comes into play. So both have strong for both, you need strong foundations in mathematics so as to understand those statistical concepts and machine learning algorithms, right? So on the same page, like when you are trying to make certain insights on data science, right? So it basically you need data, and some of the industries where there is huge data available, it's finance industry and health industry, and many other industries such as logistics, or let's say sports, hospitality, and all these industries produce lots and lots of data. So when you are generating certain insights, so you might be finding evidence through certain parameters, saying okay, these are the patterns I'm looking from my model, and these support my hypothesis, or these doesn't support my hypothesis. So are those parameters by pure coincidence, or do they have correlation also, or what is it actually happening behind those patterns? Can you find some use cases? Can you find some explanation behind the behind the predictions of your model or something like that? So that's where your domain expertise comes into play, where you have good knowledge of the data on which you are doing these experiments on, so that you can do the data processing in a much more intelligent way, and that way your models or your algorithms are tuned in a much more smarter way, and you have smarter predictions happening. Uh, to happen both of these, like to make sure the machine learning happens in a proper way, the statistics and the data processing happens everything in a seamless way, you need computer science. So if you think about data science and the mathematical algorithms or uh, proofs, which they have been lying here around since so many decades. This research has been done far away from, like, a century back, right? But right now, due to the advantage of computer science, all these huge amounts of data can be processed and accessed in a matter of minutes, right? So when you can access and process them at such a less amount of time, it makes it easier for you to derive those insights. Right? So computer science, or let's say big data, what the term which goes around a lot, right? So these contains of different architectures, which make sure that all the data, all huge amounts of data which you are processing, uh, integrate seamlessly with a data scientist, so that you can bring in the data you need, you can do your models and you can publish them, so that that it can be all your results and insights can be accessed by your organization seamlessly. That's how all these three spheres work together. And uh, in the journey of becoming a data scientist, you can start from any end of the sphere, but if you want to master data science, and if you want to be at the core of it, probably you need to have a decent bit of idea of all these three spheres of mathematics, domain expertise, and big data, so that you can do your data science projects in a better way, right? Can you please move on to the next slide, please?
Yeah.
Thank you. Uh, so yeah, when it comes to machine learning, right, so broad classification of machine learning, you can think of, you have data and you want to do certain predictions, right? So supervised learning is all about you have certain labeled data, such as let's say due to corona, there were lots and lots of chest x-rays being taken, right? You want to understand from a chest x-ray if that person has is COVID-19 positive or not, right? So that's a labeled problem. Or in my financial domain, it's usually like the default prediction problem. So how do you, when a new customer comes in to the bank to take a loan, how do you assess their risk profile? Do they tend to be a defaulter or not? So all those are labeled data, and that's if you are trying to predict a labeled data set, then it's supervised learning, because you're trying to predict something which is there, right? And how does the model learn by itself, or how does the machine learn by itself and gives out the best prediction model to you, right? That's an error mechanism. Like, you already have a set of labels and you are trying to predict them, and you see why the machine sees when it's predicting the initial model, how good is the error and how bad is the error. If the error is bad, it tries to go back and tweak and make it a better prediction. That's how model updates its parameters, and that's how you have a good defined model. That's supervised learning in a crisp. Unsupervised learning. So when it comes to unsupervised learning, you have lots of data. Let's say you have a huge customer prospect to customer base where you want to market certain products, right? Now you want to segment these customers according to their likes and interests. So how would you do that? You want to understand from the data itself, what are the important factors that would influence a community's likeness, and that community can form a group by itself. So that's where unsupervised learning comes into play. So you you have a lot of data and you want to create smaller groups of it in a much more intelligent manner based on the variables of in this data, how varied are these variables in each of these communities, right? So that's where unsupervised learning comes into play. There is one more part to it which is quite recent and which has very groundbreaking results as well. That is reinforcement learning. That is something where you have an output. The model tries to predict it on the go. Let's say something like in driving, so self-driving cars. So you're driving on the road, you see an obstacle, then you need to push stop. You the there is no obstacle, there is a straight line going in, and you want to shift lanes. These are certain applications of reinforcement learning. Or else there's a famous program by DeepMind, which is an AlphaGo, which plays games against a human and tries to beat it, right? So those are some decisions which are being made dynamically. So there is a feedback loop or a reinforcement loop where if each decision is right, the model gets a reward point saying that you need to make more such decisions which will be right. And if it makes a false there is a reinforcement signal which says you get negative points because you have done something wrong. So you need to improve yourself in that domain. That way, dynamically on the go, your model is tweaking and learning live. So that calls out for certain certain futuristic applications such as self-driving cars or so on and so forth. So these three, I can say, are broadly major classification of different types of machine learning happening out there. Can you please change the slide? Thanks. Yeah. So so when you talk about scope of data science, right, you cannot just restrict to only these which I could show on the slide as of now, but there are huge many applications, and wherever you find a good decent amount of data, you can consider doing a good amount of data science experiments around there. But right now in this slide, I'm giving out certain major applications where data science has really made an impact out there. So basic supervised learning, as we said, where there is a label available and you are trying to predict something. By the way, I mean, if you guys want to interrupt me anytime, please do so.
Yeah, right. If somebody have any questions, they can communicate, right?
Okay. Okay. So yeah, we've talked about supervised learning a bit. So it has two parts to it. It's either a classification problem or a regression problem. So when I say it is a classification problem, you are trying to predict if a certain set if a certain set of people, or if a certain set of observations belong to a particular class, or so basically in my field, it's we do a lot of prediction into a person being a defaulter or a non-defaulter. That's a classification problem. Or else an image classification problem, such as you have an image and you want to find out what are all objects lying in the image. If there is a dog, there is a park, it's a football ground, there are players, there's a goalpost or something like that. So all these are different classes you are trying to predict. So that becomes a classification problem. But simultaneously there can be a regression problem as well, where there are certain logistical applications where in a supermarket you would want to know how much stock do you want to keep of a certain product, right? Or else there is weather forecasting. You would want to understand what would be the climate tomorrow, or is there a hurricane hitting your town or something like that. So all the continuous numbers, it's not like distinct classes you are trying to predict, but it's a continuous number which you are trying to predict. So it becomes a regression problem there. Yeah, and unsupervised learning. So unsupervised learning largely consists of two kinds of this thing. One is clustering and the other one is dimensionality reduction. So when I say clustering, we have talked about it, like if you want to look at customer segmentation so that you can target, do better marketing and so on, that's where you can use clustering algorithms, where people with similar interests, people with similar behavior might form a certain group, and you can give targeted ads to those people. And when it comes to recommender systems, mostly your Netflix, Amazon, recommendations, where you are shown what kind of movies you like. There are certain recommendations which say, because you have watched a certain movie, there is a high likeliness of you watching another movie. Right? That how does that happen? You are clustering people with similar interests, similar kind of behavior in watching movies, or in similar kind of behavior in doing purchasing over Amazon or Flipkart. So that's how recommendation systems work, and that's where you try to cluster people with similar interests and similar behavior and try to segment them and push specific recommendations to them, right? And there is a dimensionality reduction problem, right? So in the real world, when you deal with data, there is huge amounts of data. For if you are trying to understand the person's behavior, there is a social media data, there is financial data, there is his buying behavior, there is spending behavior. So there is a huge amount of data, right? But how do you try to visualize it? As a human, you can only visualize it in a three-dimensional way. Right? So if you're trying to visualize this huge amounts of data, then the dimensionality reduction plays a huge role. And also you can't or you need not need all these factors going into your model and trying to influence decision about a certain problem. So you want to reduce the amount of parameters going into your model. So that's also a place where dimensionality reduction plays an important role. And recently, yeah, structured discovery, when you talk about it, recently there has been an invention into protein folding. So you want to understand the structure of protein and how does it look like and so on. That there also a dimensionality reduction plays a huge role. In financial data sets, there is lots of information into transactional databases, what time it has been done, which ATM, which sales machine, which sales outlet, what mode of transaction, is it a Visa, is it a MasterCard, is it a UPI transaction? So there are like various dimensions leading into a single transaction, but you might not need all of these to understand if that transaction is a fraudulent transaction or not. So you want to reduce your factors to a certain limit, and that way you want to identify only important factors out of your data. That's where dimensional reduction comes into play. Yeah. Then there is a concept of reinforcement learning, which is new, which is evolving quite fastly, where the decisions are being made on the go. Uh, you want to evaluate each and every decision made by the machine. As we spoke about it, if let's say if it's a if a robot is playing a game, uh, it's a chess. If he's able to uh, win the match, then all his strategies, all his moves get positive feedback. And if he's losing a piece, losing a pawn, losing a knight, or losing the game, all those moves, all those strategies get a negative point. So you are making decisions on the go, and that's where reinforcement learning is playing. All the self-driving cars of Tesla or any other company which you see across, or the SpaceX or rockets launching into sky on their own, all these are some examples of reinforcement learning, decisions being made on the go. Yeah. That's a bit of scope of data science. As I said, it's not the entirety. There is lots and lots, many other scopes of data science, but this is a brief of what I've found most important. Yeah, can we please move on to the next slide? Uh, so so if we think about careers in data science, right, all of us have walked through different paths in our life. As I said, myself, I did my post graduation from biological sciences, and I did a master's and post graduation in data science. Uh, so my core expertise lied in statistics and machine learning. Uh, as and when I moved into financial domain, I slowly started understanding the business, how the banking business works, how the lending business works, what are the risk parameters, different risk parameters, and so on. Slowly started understanding the data, so that whatever statistics knowledge I had, whatever machine learning knowledge I had to use it to make it meaningful observations or meaningful insights. Right? So that's a career path I have walked through. But you might come from various backgrounds. Right? As we said, data engineers or data architects uh, who are majorly dealing into data warehousing, who are the owners of all the different kinds of data that is flowing into your organization. Right? They also form a very important player in data science. For a data scientist to successfully model or uh, derive insights from the data, he needs to seamlessly uh, access the data, and all his insights has to be accessed by the entire organization so as to make quicker and intelligent decisions. Right? That's being made possible by these data engineers. So they have a lot of expertise into understanding different data types, different data architectures, how faster processing can be done. And if you are a data engineer and if you are interested in pursuing data science, then you can slowly as you are a data engineer in a certain domain, you would understand the domain also pretty well. So you might slowly evolve into understanding statistics, machine learning a bit, and you can also come into data science from that path. And yeah, and there are data analysts. So once a model is built by a data scientist, so who is there to evaluate these models all the time? So there are different scorecards which are being generated in each organizations. For example, for us in banking industry, we look at customers bureau scores, or we look at his banking score, or which actually means how he's doing good in bureau, or how he's doing good in banking with the bank. Or application scorecard is something like how good is he in demographics, what is his income, and so on and so forth. But once I, as a data scientist, if I build a model, this has to follow certain guidelines. This has to uh, keep certain benchmarks into identifying those people as defaulters or non-defaulters uh, to a certain accuracy, right? So who gets to check all these things? So there are data analysts who can take this model and apply it to the live data which is coming in and see how the model is performing and give feedback, live feedback. And if a model over time, the, the model might not be that effective as the time it was built, because the model has been built on a past data, and future the data might be changing a lot, being in a real world scenario, and these models might need tweaking. So these data analysts are those people who are taking these models and trying to evaluate these models on a regular basis uh, and see how good are they performing or not, right? So even if you're a data analyst, you need to have a good understanding of data science, because you're using those models and evaluating those models, right? And slowly, if you want to become a data scientist and do build a model from scratch and get the insights from scratch, you can also build up from there, trying to get your skills sharper in terms of algorithms, in terms of data science, and then move up the ladder, something like that. So these are broadly different career paths I see, but there are lot many career paths from which you can come in. So data analysts can also be those people who have deep business knowledge, and till now you have been making decisions using some basic statistics on an Excel, but now you want to do complex statistical equation or complex machine learning algorithm. You want to move in into data science, yeah, because you have that domain knowledge, that rich domain knowledge, which makes you see through the use cases, see through the data really easily. You can pick up the other skills and become a data scientist also. So yeah, these are broadly different career paths in data science, I see. So yeah, that's all from my side. Thanks, guys. I hope I was helpful.
So thank you very much, Shashank, for giving your